Hello, everybody. Thank you. Hey. Thank you so much. Thank you. Please, everybody have a seat. Thank you so much. Well, I just happened to be in the neighborhood, so I thought I would crash this party. This is my hometown, so I hope that Ram has been as good of a host as he was a chief of staff and as good as he has been a mayor. Thank you, Ram, for your outstanding leadership. Give him a big round of applause. I want to thank also a couple of people whose leadership has been critical in creating America's Pledge, Michael Bloomberg and Governor Jerry Brown. They have been outstanding. They have been working on climate change issues for a long time, and they continue to show the kind of leadership that is needed at the moment. But most of all, the reason I'm here is mainly just to say thank you to all of you. I am always pleased to be around mayors. There's something about all of you that requires you to actually work and not just talk. People expect you to perform. You have to shovel snow, and you have to make sure the garbage is being picked up. And people ask, how come there's a pothole in front of my house? And so there is a concreteness to your work and a practical mindset that arises because of the constant daily interactions that you have with your constituents that transcends ideology and that allows, when mayors get together, to think in very practical terms about how do we get stuff done. And that mindset, a mindset that isn't arguing politics, but rather is grounded in facts and actual events and impacts on people, that mindset is exactly what is needed at the moment when we think about climate change. As we speak, Miami already floods on sunny days. Western cities across North America are dealing with longer and harsher wildfire seasons. A conveyor belt of some of the strongest hurricanes on record this summer smashed into Houston and Florida and Puerto Rico, and more than 2 months later, they are still struggling to recover. And all of this is happening while global carbon emissions and global temperatures are still on the rise. 2015 was the warmest year on record until 2016 became the warmest on record. And what that tells us is that climate is changing faster than our efforts to address it. And that's why I made climate change a priority when I was president. It's not because I didn't have other things to do. It wasn't because of some ideological notions about the environment. It was a very practical understanding based on the science that if we did not get this issue right, then just about every other issue was going to be adversely affected. If you were concerned about national security, then you needed to worry about the potential effects of climate change on creating huge new surges of migrants, the potential conflict that arises if you have consistent drought or people unable to feed themselves. If you were concerned about economic development and GDP, you had to take a look at the extraordinary losses that would accumulate as temperatures got higher. There was no aspect of policy that we were concerned about that was not touched profoundly by this issue, which is the reason why It wasn't just the EPA that was concerned about it. The Pentagon and our Joint Chiefs of Staff were concerned about it. And we took action. During the course of my presidency, we more than doubled production of clean energy like wind and solar. We set the first ever national standards to limit the amount of carbon pollution that power plants can dump in the air that our kids breathe. We changed the way that we consume energy, from the cars and trucks that we drive to the homes and businesses where we live and where we work. And we met resistance at every step of the way. And there were skeptics who said that these actions would kill jobs and depress growth. And instead, as we took these actions, we saw the U.S. economy grow consistently. We saw the longest streak of job creation in American history by far, a streak that still continues, by the way. Thanks, Obama. And at the same time, we led around the world on the issue, recognizing that we weren't going to solve this problem alone. And working with China and India and dozens of other countries, we sought to set ambitious climate targets globally. And these are the efforts that ultimately led to the Paris Agreement, an agreement that has the potential to at least delay and potentially avoid some of the worst consequences of climate change. Now, obviously, we're in an unusual time where the United States is now the only nation on earth that does not belong to the Paris Agreement, and that's a difficult position to defend. But the good news is that the Paris Agreement was never going to solve the climate crisis on its own. It was going to be up to all of us. Presidents, national governments can set goals and priorities. We can make sure that there are investments in the research that's required to ramp up the discovery of new energy sources. We have the ability to set standards around which markets can respond and create incentives for the kinds of actions that are taken. But ultimately, the work is done on the ground. Ultimately, the work is up to each of us, wherever we have some impact, wherever we have some influence. And that's why America's pledge on climate is so important. It's about more than living up to our responsibilities on the world stage. It's about keeping our word on the world stage. And cities and states and businesses and universities and nonprofits have emerged as the new face of American leadership on climate change. So, a statistic that I think you're familiar with, so far those who've joined America's pledge represent half our population and half of our economy. And if all those who were part of America's pledge were its own country, it would be the third largest in the world. What amazing leadership and amazing potential that holds. Our biggest cities have now adopted more sustainable building and transportation policies. Some of our biggest companies have set more ambitious renewable energy targets than even we set while I was president. Our power sector is still on track to meet the more ambitious emissions targets set a few years ago. I know that some mayors, like Rahm, have gone even farther by signing the Chicago Climate Charter, which is a commitment to reduce carbons in line with the Paris Agreement, take aggressive action on climate, and to plan for the realities that even if we get out ahead of this thing, we can no longer avoid. And that's a powerful signal to the world. That's what leadership means, and it will make a difference. So the bottom line is, I want to thank you and I want to encourage you. Sheltering future generations from the ravages of climate change should be something of an obsession for us. And Americans should make it a prerequisite for the vote of anybody in elected office that they're paying attention to it. We live at a time where everything is contested. And so often, because of the splintering of our media, it is possible to only occupy a world in which the facts that come in conform to your pre-existing conceptions. And that's a challenge, particularly for democracies, because democracy is premised on the idea that we can disagree, but there is a objective reality out there. There are certain facts that are not subject to opinion and debate. And we may disagree on how we can solve a problem, but at least we can agree that there is a problem. And in this environment right now, I think it's easy sometimes to feel discouraged and to feel as if people are talking past each other. But this is where the particular talents of mayors come in. Because, first of all, you're used to dealing with folks who can sometimes be unreasonable. But second of all, as I said at the beginning, you're accustomed, regardless of your party, regardless of how you came to occupy the office, you're accustomed to having to deal with the realities that are in front of you and to take action, not just talk about it. And people will hold you accountable and expect that you're actually going to perform. And there's no place in which that's going to be more important than on this generational issue. Ram and I were talking before we came out, and we have children who aren't so young anymore. They're entering into young adulthood. And we're both getting to the age, although we like to think that we're still fit and haven't slipped, where you become aware of your mortality. And the thing that you want to make sure of, the thing that is more important now than anything else, in a way that wasn't true even 15 or 20 or 30 years ago when you thought you had forever, the thing you want to make sure of is that your kids and their kids are going to be okay. And the one thing that might make it not okay for them is this. We can't protect our children or our grandkids from heartbreak or mistakes or the vicissitudes of life. They're going to have their own challenges and their own struggles, and as long as we're around, we want to help them when we can, but we know that's going to happen. That's the nature of human fate. But this is something we can do something about. And I'm hoping that as a consequence of you seeing meaningful impacts in your own cities and you realizing that you're part of a broader movement, that inspires you to bolder and bolder work. And that in turn, I think, can inspire a country. And that will inspire the world. So thank you very much for your outstanding work. God bless you. Appreciate it, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.